Hello and welcome to Train Signal. You're watching Overview of VMware vSphere 5. In this lesson, I'll give you an overview, you guessed it, of VMware vSphere 5. I'll cover the components related to vSphere 5, how it's packaged and what the different versions are. I'll quickly cover cloud computing and how it relates to vSphere 5 before I end the lesson with the vSphere ecosystem. So with that, let's get started. It's very likely that if you're using this training course on vSphere 5, you already have a good idea of what vSphere 5 is. But let me quickly give you a few bullets about what vSphere 5 is and is not. First off, vSphere 5 is a virtualization, hypervisor, and associated suite of products. vSphere includes ESXi, and it's sold in kits or a per-socket license. vCenter is sold separately, but typically it's required, and I would say 99.999% of people out there, if they bought vSphere or ESXi, they're also using vCenter. It just makes sense. It's not completely required, but to use most of the advanced features that you're buying vSphere to use, you really need vCenter. So pretty much everyone out there buys vSphere, and then they buy vCenter. In fact, these kits that I'm talking about that vSphere is also sold in includes vCenter. As I pointed out, ESXi is part of vSphere, so you can't just buy ESXi. Nobody uses just ESXi. In fact, the free version of ESXi is now called the vSphere Free Hypervisor. So everything's vSphere. ESXi is just the hypervisor that is actually installed on the physical server. Now, new with vSphere 5, there is no more ESX server, it's only ESXi server. And the difference being that ESX server had the service console, ESXi server is a much thinner version of ESX server, and I'll be covering the difference between the two in more detail a little bit later in this lesson. But ESXi is a Type 1 hypervisor, just like ESX server is, and that means that it installs directly on the hardware. It is your operating system. vSphere is really the name of the entire suite of features that go around ESXi. If you haven't seen or used vSphere before, now let me go over to my vSphere client, which is where most VMware administrators spend their time administering and configuring VMware vSphere. Alright, so this is it. This is the VMware vSphere client. This is a Windows application that VMware vSphere administrators spend most of their time in. In this application, you've got the inventory of all your ESXi servers. In my case, I've got 2 ESXi servers. Your virtual machines, which are running down here, these are your guest operating systems. And then all of these can be organized into clusters, folders, data centers, and resource pools. If we go to the home screen, you can see I was in the hosts and clusters inventory, but there's a lot more things you can do in here, such as configure data stores, data store clusters, networking, templates, roles, users, licensing, view system logs, manage scheduled tasks, events, view maps, host profiles, virtual machine storage profiles, and even use solutions and applications down here, which are based on plugins that you add in to the vSphere client. For example, I have VMware Data Recovery, which is a backup and virtual machine recovery application included with most editions of VMware vSphere. But in all honesty, most admins spend their time here in the host and clusters inventory, where you can control ESXi servers. Here I can shut down, restart, reconfigure this ESXi host, and then I can also do the same thing to virtual machines as well as access their console. And then I can do the same thing to virtual machines, such as access their console. So there we're looking at the console of my vCenter 5 virtual machine running in Windows 2008 server as the guest operating system. So now that I've given you a quick taste of what the VMware vSphere client looks like when it's connected to vCenter, managing ESXi servers and virtual machines using vSphere 5. So now let's go back to our slides and learn a little bit more. There's a lot of different components that make up vSphere 5. I talked about ESXi, that's what's loaded directly on your physical servers. There's vCenter, which is a Windows application, or new with vSphere 5, it can actually be used as a Linux-based virtual appliance. There's the vSphere client, which is what we were in just a second ago, that you'll use to manage your vSphere virtual infrastructure. There's even a new web-based version of that I'll be showing you off in a later lesson in this course. Then there's features like vMotion, Storage vMotion, Distributed Resource Scheduler, the new feature in vSphere 5, Storage DRS. There's DPM, which is Distributed Power Management. There's VMHA, VMware High Availability, Fault Tolerance. And then there's vShield Zones, which is a security feature included in most versions of vSphere 5. There's Data Recovery, which I talked about, a backup and restoration application for vSphere. There's Hot Add and Hot Plug. Hot Add allows you to hot add memory to a running virtual machine, and Hot Plug allows you to hot plug additional virtual CPUs. There's the Distributed Virtual Switch, the VMware File System, or the VMFS, Thin Provisioning, Update Manager, Storage I/O Control, and Network I/O Control, and then finally Host Profiles. These are just some of the major features, applications, and components that make up the VMware vSphere suite. And now let's go look at a graphic, which I think will give you a better visual representation. In this graphic from VMware.com, you can see a lot of the different features of vSphere 5 represented. At the very bottom, on the bottom left there, you have your private cloud resource pools. Just think of this as the components or the resources that your physical servers provide. They've got compute, which would be the CPU. They've got storage, which very likely is in a storage area network. And then you've got networking. Your network infrastructure could be physical or could be virtual. You have the option to connect to public cloud resources if you chose to do that. And then on top of that, in the blue box here, you see VMware vSphere Virtualization Platform. Inside this platform, starting at the bottom, you've got the application services. Inside the availability box, that is vMotion, Storage vMotion, High Availability, Fault Tolerance, and Data Recovery. Inside security, you've got vShield Zones and vMsafe. vMsafe is really an API for third-party companies to create security products for vSphere. Then you've got scalability with features like DRS or Distributed Resource Scheduler and Hot Add. Above that, you've got the infrastructure services. In the compute box here, you've got ESXi, which is the hypervisor that you install on the physical server. Then DRS and DPM and memory over commitment, which is a unique feature of VMware vSphere that allows you to use more memory than what you have thanks to unique memory management capabilities inside the ESXi hypervisor. You've got the VMFS, Thin Provisioning, Storage I/O Control, and then under Network, the Distributed Virtual Switch and Network I/O Control. Above that, the VMware vCenter server is what's managing the VMware vSphere virtual platform. And then above that, you've got VMware vCloud Director in the green box. That's VMware's optional private cloud or public cloud software solution that would manage the virtual infrastructure, providing you insight across all of your virtual infrastructures, as well as giving your end users self-service capabilities. Of course, that's an optional piece that I would say most virtual infrastructures today aren't using, but it's gaining popularity. And then on top of that, up here, you've got desktop virtual infrastructure with VMware ThinApp and VMware View. And then you've got your applications running inside virtual machines that are running on top of vSphere. You've got future applications like Cloud Foundry and the VMware vFabric. These are all software as a service or development applications offered by vSphere. And then on the right-hand side here, you've got application management, such as VMware vCenter AppSpeed, and then virtualization and cloud management with VMware vCenter Operations, vCenter Site Recovery Manager, Capacity IQ, Chargeback, Configuration Manager, Service Manager, and VMware vCenter Orchestrator. So what this really is this is laying out every possibility, really, that VMware offers for your virtual infrastructure. So I don't want to give you the idea that vSphere contains all of this. vSphere is really in this blue box right here, the VMware vSphere Virtualization Platform. You've got ESXi as the hypervisor, along with these variety of features here included in the different boxes. On top of that, you've got VMware vCenter. And in this training course covering vSphere 5, we'll be focusing on really ESXi, the features of the vSphere Virtualization Platform, and then what the VMware vCenter server can do for you. Look for other courses from TrainSignal that cover things like VMware ThinApp, VMware View, vShield, and vCloud Director. Moving on, let's talk about how vSphere is packaged and what the various versions are. Starting at the low end, you've got the VMware vSphere Hypervisor. This is the completely free version of VMware vSphere. So you might be wondering, hey, why don't I just use the free version? Well, first off, you're not going to have vCenter, and you won't be able to add the free version to a vCenter server. The free version is very limited in features, but it's still a powerful Type 1 virtualization hypervisor. And if all you had was a single server installation, it's a great way to use virtualization. It's also a great way to test and learn about VMware vSphere. Moving up from there, you've got the vSphere Essentials Kit and Essentials Plus Kit. And like the description says, these are both kits, so they include multiple licenses of vSphere, as well as a limited version, actually the Foundations version of vCenter on top of that. So anytime it says kit, you know that you're buying vCenter as well as some number of licenses for VMware vSphere. Above that, you've got the vSphere Acceleration Kits, which includes Standard, Enterprise, and Enterprise Plus. Again, that includes vCenter plus some limited number of vSphere CPU-based licenses. Moving down the list there, you've got vSphere. You can just buy vSphere without vCenter, and it's sold on a per CPU socket basis, and each edition of vSphere comes with a specific amount of VRAM entitlement. You should also note that the advanced version of vSphere is no longer available in vSphere 5. So if you're buying any of those editions of vSphere, you should also buy vCenter on top of that. You'll really need to buy vCenter on top of that. And there's two versions of vCenter. There's the Foundations version that includes the management of up to 3 ESXi servers, and then there's the standard version, which has more of an unlimited number of ESXi servers that can be managed. Before we move on, let me take you over to a web page that compares what features are available in the various vSphere versions or editions. Let's compare the difference between vSphere 5, Standard, Enterprise, and Enterprise Plus. If we scroll down here, you can see that each one of these is entitled to one CPU. So when you buy a single license of vSphere Standard, you're entitled to use it on one physical CPU socket. Now that socket can actually have an unlimited number of cores inside, but when it comes to VRAM, you're entitled to 24 gigabytes of VRAM for vSphere 5 Standard, 32 gigabytes of VRAM for Enterprise, and 48 for Enterprise Plus. Now I'm going to have a whole separate lesson on vSphere 5 pooled pricing, but I want to point out that these are pools of VRAM entitlements. So let's say that you had a 2-socket CPU server, so you bought 2 vSphere 5 Standard licenses. So you would actually have 24 gigabytes times 2. And then if you had multiple servers, all the RAM from each server would be put into a pool, and then every time a virtual machine was configured and then powered on, the RAM configured for that virtual machine would be subtracted from that pool that you're entitled to use. And then if you powered on so many virtual machines that were configured with more RAM than what the entire pool offered, then you would be violating your end user license agreement. Again, check out my lesson on VRAM pooled pricing. Moving on, each of these licenses is entitled to a specific number of virtual CPUs. For example, you can have up to an 8-way virtual machine with vSphere 5 Standard, but up to a 32-way virtual machine with vSphere 5 Enterprise Plus. Keep in mind that vCenter is sold separately, so here you're just licensing a CPU socket license of vSphere. You're not getting vCenter at all. You have to purchase vCenter separately. Scrolling on down, features like thin provisioning, update manager, data recovery, high availability, and vMotion are available in all 3 of these editions. But when you get down to a certain point here, it's Enterprise that's going to have features like hot add, vShield zones, fault tolerance, storage vMotion, and distributed resource scheduler. Then when you get to that point, it's only Enterprise Plus that has storage I/O control, network I/O control, distributed switch, host profiles, the new auto deploy, the new storage DRS, and the new profile-driven storage. So these last few new features here, these last 3 new features are only available in Enterprise Plus. However, you should know that for testing and learning about VMware vSphere, you can download a free 60-day evaluation of VMware vSphere Enterprise Plus that includes VMware vCenter Standard. So you can use all the features in this list unlimited for up to 60 days while you're evaluating and learning about VMware vSphere. So with that, let's go back to our slides. And if you'd like to get the specifics about VMware vSphere pricing, visit vmware.com/products/vSphere/pricing.html. With that, let's move on and talk about cloud computing. Since you're interested in learning about VMware vSphere, it's also very likely that you're interested in cloud computing. And at this point, you may be wondering how cloud computing fits in with VMware vSphere. Over the last couple of years, VMware has become one of the largest proponents of cloud computing out of any software manufacturer out there, and they market their VMware vCloud products heavily. Those products include VMware vCloud Director, or VCD, which you saw in an earlier graphic. This is actually the management platform that goes above VMware vCenter, and it manages multiple vSphere infrastructures, and those infrastructures could be internal clouds, they could be external clouds, or you could even have a federation or a hybrid cloud that connects the two together. On top of that, there's vCloud data center providers. This is a short list of public cloud providers that use VMware vSphere and the vCloud Director. And those would be the types of providers that you would most likely be able to create a hybrid cloud with, assuming you're using vSphere and vCloud Director in your internal or private cloud. Another third-party service offering that's been blessed by VMware is vCloud Express. This is a pay-as-you-go public cloud computing offering where you can give them your credit card and then you're only charged for the cloud computing resources that you use. So you can run virtual machines that are running on top of vSphere in the service provider's public cloud. There's vCloud Request Manager, which is really a workflow tool that allows end users to create requests for virtual machines in your private cloud virtual infrastructure. And then there's the vCloud API, which is a programmatic interface that third-party software companies can use to write programs that work with VMware's vCloud products. So just remember that VMware vSphere sits at the lowest level, which includes VMware ESXi running directly on the physical server. vSphere is that suite of products that includes a wide range of features and applications. It's all managed by VMware vCenter, but cloud computing doesn't come into play until you install VMware vCloud Director, which would sit on top of vCenter and create a private or a public cloud. From here on out, we really won't be covering cloud computing or vCloud Director very much, but keep those products in mind for the future, because once you get your vSphere infrastructure up and running, keep an eye out for training products from TrainSignal covering cloud computing and VMware vCloud Director. And here in the last slide of this vSphere 5 overview, I want to quickly mention the VMware ecosystem. When someone asks me which virtualization hypervisor they should learn about, I tell them that they should learn about VMware vSphere, because VMware has created the most amazing and powerful ecosystem around their product line, and that's truly what makes it so successful. Absolutely, it has great features, and VMware does a great job supporting it, but it's the entire ecosystem around the product that makes it so popular and makes it such a success. The VMware ecosystem is strong. It includes hardware vendors, consulting companies, VMware View partners, virtual appliance partners, third-party software companies, bloggers, community members, book authors, training providers, and then there's even all the leaders of VMware user groups around the world. Every one of those different types of people and organizations is all working together to learn about VMware vSphere, test it, implement it, promote it, educate people on it, and help others to learn about it. And by doing that, that's what makes VMware vSphere such a tremendous success. And I honestly believe that once you learn about VMware vSphere and try it for yourself, I think you'll fall in love with it just as much as I did, and then you'll want to be part of this vSphere ecosystem or VMware ecosystem and serve in some capacity. It could be working for a consulting company. It could be working for a third-party software company. You might want to start your own blog or write a book or even speak at your local VMUG. There's a lot of great ways to contribute to the VMware ecosystem and give back to this community that I think you'll find is going to be so valuable to you as you learn more and more about VMware vSphere. And that brings us to the summary for this lesson. I started off by providing you a simple overview of what VMware vSphere 5 is. I showed you what it looks like from the perspective of a VMware administrator, and then I covered the different components that make up vSphere 5. components like vMotion, Storage vMotion, Storage Distributed Resource Scheduler, Network I/O, Storage I/O, the ESXi Hypervisor, vCenter, the vSphere client, and even command line interfaces. From there we moved on and I talked about how vSphere is packaged in the various versions of vSphere that are available. After that I covered cloud computing from the perspective of VMware and how it fits in to VMware vSphere before I ended the lesson with the VMware ecosystem that you'll be using and hopefully contributing back to one day in some form or another. Thanks for watching this lesson providing an overview of VMware vSphere 5.